Okay. Just checking audio. And it looks like the subtitles captioning might be working as well. Neat. Okay, well, hello and welcome to Plugin Along, a stream dedicated to Lord of the Rings Online plugins. Last time on Plugin Along, we switched to working on the deed tracker plugin. The recent update 38, the Corsairs of Umbar release, came out with a bunch of deeds, and we want to get an update out so people can use it. So today we're going to be looking at an import bug that someone sent me through email, and then finish doing this release. I did mean to do a release between last week and this week, but life got in the way, so here we are doing it now. As always, feel free to jump into chat with your thoughts and questions, but we are going to start with a question in chat from Telerian, who asked about my patch to the Bootstrap Reloader. Why do you have to remove a local from the code to make it work? This is such a great and subtle question. So let's go ahead and dig into it by pulling up the plugin in question, which is not deed tracker. Totally okay. So I'm going to switch my scene here. And what are we talking about? Oh, that's a different one. Haha. Different problem we're going to come into. Okay, so we're going to open up LOTRO interface here. And the one we're talking about is a patch I made a while back for Bootstrap Plugin Manager, which is a way to, with a plugin, manage your other plugins. So some people, when they want to switch back and forth between characters rapidly, for instance, don't want that extra spin up and shut down time of every plugin, and maybe they have 10 or 20 plugins that they would commonly load. So other thing the Bootstrap Plugin Manager lets you do is when you log in, only the Bootstrap Plugin Manager loads, or maybe not even that, but that would be the main use, I think, is only that one loads, and then you tell it, okay, go ahead and load the other ones. And that lets you delay loading of plugins until you actually want them. That's my understanding of how to use it. And that way, if you're quickly moving between one character to another, the plugins don't even come into play. But there was a problem with this. Someone asked, hey, is it fixable? And I dug into it. So if we download both the original and my patch for it, we can take a look at what the difference is. I've pre-done this in the background because I had to refresh my memory on what Telerian was asking. So Telerian, hopefully you're in chat. If not, you'll be able to catch this later. Okay, so this is a release with a single file in it. If we come into this zip file, well, I should say it has the .plugin file and the reloader plugin because the version's changed, and then we do just the reloader right here. Okay, reloader.lua. So what's different in reloader.lua? Well, as Telerian asked, we had a control that was declared local, and we removed that keyword, and that was it. That was the entire patch. Okay, Telerian's here. Telerian is listening. Awesome. So what's going on here? Why on earth would I do such a wacky thing? Well, let's go ahead and install these plugins. So I'm going to use the plugin compendium to do it right. And Bootstrap Plugin Manager, we're going to go ahead and add that. Now, patches aren't manageable through the LOTRO Plugin Compendium at the moment, but in this case, it's a pretty simple patch. So we're going to go to Documents, Lord of the Rings Online, Plugins, into Equindel, and this is the Plugin Manager, and we want to overwrite this reloader file. Super easy. I just have to find where I put it. Okay, so that's in my downloads. In the 141, we're going to go ahead and copy that over. In fact, we can copy over the entire Equindel folder. The version will change too, and we'll know we did it right. So let's do a little refresh here. We can see we've got the Bootstrap, which is 1.4, and the Bootstrap Reloader, also 1.4. Cool. So drag that over, replace that. and do a reload, and we can see we got 141. Great. However, it might be a little early to patch that because we want to see how it's supposed to work and isn't working. So let me come back in here. We're going to go ahead and open this with Visual Studio Code. Alright, open a folder. We're going to open that. And that'll give us a place to work from. Sure, the author is probably great. Let's find out. Okay, so reloader, the way it was is local. Okay, so let's go ahead and load up Bootstrap and see if this works. Reload Bootstrap. Did it do anything? It might have actually. Okay. Well, it's certainly working right now. So what is the local doing, and why did I think it was a problem? So local is a scoping mechanism for variables, and I apologize if I'm not using Lua-specific terms for this. I'm going to be speaking off the cuff on this, and Lua is not my primary language. But local is a way of telling the interpreter that is reading through your code and executing your code, hey, when we leave the scope that we are currently in, you can garbage collect this variable and get it out of here. And so garbage collection in Lua is non-deterministic. When you're done with a variable, Lua will come along at some point and decide, okay, you're done with it, and destruct the object if it's an object and reclaim that memory. And there's no guarantee it will happen, but it can happen anytime after there aren't any more references to it. So by changing this from a global variable, here control, to a local variable, when we hit the end of the file, that should trigger, hey, this thing is available for memory collection. So, other thing we can play around with here is, what does it look like when something is or is not memory collected, to get a sense of this. So let's go ahead and make ourselves some controls. We're going to call them control collected. Whoopsie. Don't want that. Okay, so we have control collected. In its update function, we're really not going to do much of anything. We're just going to do a turbine.shell.writeLine. And my typing had better get better today. Undefined turbine. Weird. Okay. So, turbine.shell.writeLine, and we're going to go ahead and send out control collected and update. Cool. And what we want to do is remember to say that that's a local variable, so we're expecting it to be collected. And then here, control collected, we're going to say control not collected. And it also has an update. And what I would expect to see is that the update function for control not collected just gets called repeatedly. This is a global variable. It's going to be in scope while the plugin is loaded. So we should see this every update cycle. In fact, let's do ourselves a favor and be a little clever about this. So control collected dot last output equals 0. Great. And we want to do the same for control not collected. And so in here, we're just going to say local, and again, I'm using local a lot because that's just my default, scoping mechanism. I'm not sure there's a lot between global and local. And what we want is the current time. So we can go to turbine engine, get game time. Great. engine dot get game time. I don't have my environment set up correctly here, so the turbine stuff's not rendering. Or, yeah, I think it's just a problem with my environment. So the IntelliSense isn't properly determining what things are. That's okay. So local time equals that. If time is greater than control collected dot last output plus 1, then do stuff. Specifically, we want to mark the last output equals to time, and also we can do our output. And that should limit this to once every second instead of once every frame, which can be dozens of times, hundreds of times a second. Depends on your computer. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and say the same thing. In fact, we could have a centralized function for this, but we don't need to make this pretty. Okay, so what we want to see is the update if I actually remember to not copy paste error myself into a problem. Okay, so we see not collected continues to update. Control collected did get called once, but then after that it didn't. And this is a non-deterministic race condition where it might have been called 0 or more times before it got garbage collected. But once it was garbage collected, it didn't get called again. So we have the exact same code in here, which is make sure we don't spam too much. Now, we can spam a little bit, so let's actually step it up to like 10 times a second and see what happens there. See, if I don't do it in a common function, then changing one function does not make it consistent. Okay, hang on. Output function output if recent output if not too often. I think there's a better name to be had here, but what we want to do is we're passing in the control, and we want to do basically the same thing now. So we're checking the control. If the control.last output, control.last output, and then control name, so that we can put that into the output here. So control name in update. Okay. So we can do the same thing here. Output if not too often, and we're going to pass in control collected. And just being lazy, there's probably ways to get the name of it from. I don't know if they have a reflection here, but I want to use it. Okay, output if not too often, and we're going to do not collected. Okay, again, we're being a little lazy with this. We don't have to be too refined. This is just some test code. Okay, so what do we see here? When we started it up, we got collected called. It got to call itself 3 times before the garbage collector got around to saying, "Oh nope, you're done." So 3 times that time. In fact, let's go ahead and get some other stuff. Control collected dot output count equals 0, and we're going to do the same thing down here. Control not collected output count, and then we can go ahead and say control dot output count equals control dot output count plus 1, and then we can say control dot output count times. Okay, and then because it was a single function, that's a little bit easier. Okay, so what did we get that time? We got 3 times. And we're going to see pretty regular on this machine. Okay, this machine is able to hit the update 3 times before the garbage collector under the current memory load, me just sitting here, happens. So what are we seeing? We're seeing that if you have a local variable defined at file scope, then at the end of that file, this variable is now out of scope. There are no more references to it in this code base, and therefore the garbage collector can come along and collect it. And when that happens, this object is destructed, the update function no longer gets called, and anything it would be doing in that function stops happening. And why is that a problem here? Well, the entire point of this control is to call the reload function. And if it gets garbage collected before that happens, then it does not do the thing it's trying to do, which is call the only other function in this file. So what I must have been seeing at the time is that this reloader was not working. Now, what is going on here? Okay, so something else loads the reloader. The reloader is meant to load Bootstrap. So this is the pretty common method of how do you reload a plugin? Well, you load another plugin, which unloads and reloads your plugin, because you can't just tell the plugin manager, please unload and reload me myself. So there's a bunch of different variations on this theme. So go ahead and unload any boot. What is this? Hang on. Reloading and okay, so load plugin Bootstrap, awesome. Might have hooked. Okay, you're calling the reset on there. You're unloading the script state on things. Cool. And then Bootstrap unloads this script. Great. So yeah, if you have declared the control that is going to use the control.update to do this functionality, then you want to make sure that it doesn't go out of scope before it does its thing. We know this plugin is about to get torn down. Hey, Lord Zach is in chat. Hello. So you want to make sure this control doesn't get torn down prematurely. The plugin's about to be unloaded, so it doesn't matter. Okay, so that's what's going on. So Tellurian's question of why was the patch a single change from local control to control? Well, the answer is local control can be collected prematurely, basically as soon as this file is done executing, and on certain computers under certain memory loads, that will result in the control being destructed before the first time update is called. Now we call set once updates false, so this only ever needs to get called one time, but you can get into a race condition where it is called 0 times. So sometimes 0, sometimes 1. Very frustrating. So we make sure we extend the lifetime of the control to the lifetime of the plugin, which is especially meaningful here because this plugin's only goal is to load a different plugin and then be unloaded. So it does not matter that this scope extends the lifetime of the control of the plugin because the plugin's about to be torn down. Yeah, Tellurian says, you think you get it? The function might be thrown away before used. Absolutely. If it is local, then it is available for garbage collection prematurely. And if it is garbage collected before this update is called, the reload function never happens. Tellurian says, follow-up question, why did it work before a certain patch? Well, I don't know if it worked for everyone, but garbage collectors are variable. There's a lot of magic that goes into a good garbage collector, and if LOTRO included a patch for the 5.1 version of Lua that it embeds within the game client, it's very possible that could come with a tuning that happens to the garbage collector, ways to make it less intrusive, for instance. It's sort of a classic problem with garbage collectors is your traditional classical garbage collector, in order for it to run and not like corrupt the crap out of everything, is everything pauses, the garbage collector goes through and looks at all the references in memory. It has a list of all the objects, and it looks at all the references, and then it says, okay, I now know which of you are not being referenced by any variables. Like you're not accessible anymore. Therefore, I can safely prune you. I can remove you because that is not observable to the state of the script. Leaving you or not leaving you, it does not seem observable. Now, of course, we know that in this case, the set wants updates means that this is observable when something gets garbage collected. But that's the main theory, is that if you can't get to the variable anymore, you have released your last reference to it. It is safe to be garbage collected. But when you do that in that classical sense, you pause everything so you can rummage through the memory and find all these references, you tend to have performance issues because your plugin can't execute. And depending on the multi-threaded nature of the client, the game client, Lord of the Rings Online in this case, maybe it kind of freezes for half a second on older or slower computers because all of this is happening. So a better tuned, a more graceful garbage collector might do just a little bit here, a little bit there, not do a full sweep of memory, but just be a little bit less intrusive. And so I could definitely see how an update to the embedded Lua 5.1 in LOTRO could result in just slightly different garbage collection mechanics. I could also just see it as, during that update, it just so happened that a bunch of people also switched computers or started running their computer in a different configuration or with higher resolution graphics or whatever, and things other than the exact version of embedded Lua, changing how much free memory there is, changing what else is going on in your computer, those could also have an effect on the garbage collector. The perfect garbage collector is a garbage collector that never needs to run because you never run out of memory. So which plugins you have, which plugins are loaded, how much memory is available, these are all factors that could impact the garbage collector. I don't know if they do impact the Lua garbage collector. One of the things I was curious about is it possible to have what I would call a destructor in other languages? And I was just starting to poke at this when Little Redhead's stream came to an end. But it looked like it was possible to attach an __GC method to the metatable of an object. And if so, I think that would be very interesting. So I was going to poke at that for just a second, because if you can have a function called when the object is being collected, that might, in and of itself, give us information. So let me just copy some code. This is from Stack Overflow, question about Lua garbage control. So let me get rid of these other things. Actually, I'm not going to prematurely delete them, but I will comment them out. Okay. So I'm going to run this first, and then I'm going to see if I understand it. So we're just loading the bootstrap. Oh, it won't work because they're specifically calling out for Lua 5.2. We only have version 5.1 embedded in here. But we know this is a thing that will get collected. So they were asking about bare tables, and instead we're going to go ahead and put a little object here and see if I understand this at all. Okay, I do not understand it, as it turns out. Let's see, Lua set metatable. How does this work? And also, we know that there's probably some metatables going on in the class file that we get from Turbine. Okay, so we can set metatable a class table, and class table. Okay, this is the one in. Okay, this is a different one than would be being used by Bootstrap. Let me back out of here a second. Coming into Equendo. class and come look at metatable, because this is something I keep meaning to dig into and I keep on not digging into. There's lots of setting metatables going on here. Yeah, Lord Zach says you can force garbage collection with collect garbage, with a call to collect garbage. Absolutely. What I am not certain on is how to have a destructor get called. It sure would help if I would read the whole thing here. Okay, so okay, cannot change a protected metatable. That's really neat. Oh, Zach, if you don't, it collects every Thursday morning. I think the cleaner comes on Monday. Okay. So this is at least getting us that you can't change a protected metatable, which is great. So set metatable. Class instance metatable. Neat. Let's see if we can go ahead and say GC equals function. And what were we trying to do in it? Okay, we'll take a self, sure. Now, didn't actually hide this. Okay. Lord Zach says, why are you not passing an argument to collect garbage? I was just copying it off of the internet. As it turns out, it didn't change the behavior. So, I am certain there's a way in some versions of Lua to attach a garbage collection function. I'm not certain I'm doing it correctly. Oh, I'm definitely certain I'm in the wrong place, though. Okay. Oh, neat. Okay, I am in the right place now, and my massive syntax error got in the way. Okay, so this GC does not seem to be the right syntax to get a garbage collector in 5.1. Lua 5.1 GC. Just doing a quick little online search. Okay, there's stuff out there. Yeah, Lord Zach, collect could be a default. In fact, there was some... Let's see. That's an interesting point. If we said collect garbage stop, would that... Nope, it did not permanently stop garbage collection. That's okay. Yeah, it's possible that there's a default behavior. Neat. Okay, cool. Um, yeah, okay. Um, so, looking at the manual here, garbage user with a field GC in their meta tables are not collected immediately by the garbage collector. Instead, they're in a list, and then it runs that. So I feel like I don't understand Lua well enough to know if I'm putting this attempted code change in the right place. Like we are calling set metatable in multiple locations. You know what? I'll go ahead and just put it everywhere. Why not? So set metatable, class metatable. Great. Okay, so it would look something like that. Sure, why not? This is all going to get blown away anyway when I delete that. Okay, so I'm going to pause there. I think there's a way to have a garbage destructor essentially run when the garbage collector is going to collect an object. I don't think it's going to be very useful from a plugin perspective to know that. Ideally, we already know that we're letting the last reference go. But I think it could be useful to kind of understand the life cycle of objects. Anyway, long story short, the process of pressing this reload bootstrap was causing us to load bootstrap reloader under the assumption that it would unload bootstrap, reload bootstrap, and when bootstrap itself loads, it would unload the bootstrap reloader. All of that was dependent on, whoopsie. All of that was dependent on this control getting into its update function at least once, and sometimes that wasn't happening because it was being garbage collected before that happened. So that's why that patch contains a single one-line change, which is to convert that local variable into a global variable, and then problem solved. Lord X says, I think I found code that looks like what you're playing with. Awesome. Feel free to shoot it my way in chat or on Discord or something. I think I might play with it offline, but I wanted to give Tellurian a chance to see what was going on. Oh, that's funny. Well, Moobot didn't like you sharing that. And I didn't have the stream window up at the time, so I only get an abbreviated one. But I think if Little Redhead's still in chat, she'll shoot that over to me. Otherwise, if you get a chance, feel free to pop it over to me on Discord if we're connected there. I can't remember. Otherwise, LOTRODtracker@gmail.com, and I'll play with it offline. Awesome. What a great question, Tellurian. Hopefully that makes some sort of sense. I'm kind of explaining off the cuff here. You can't send it from here to Discord. No worries. Actually, can you just send me a private message on Twitch? Tellurian says, you did a good explanation. Well, thank you. You did not think that would be a problem. Sometimes it's not going to be. It's non-deterministic, and that's the worst kind of bug. Awesome. I got it, Lord Zach. Thanks. Fantastic. So the link that was sent is Understanding Lua's Garbage Collection Towards a Formalized Static Analyzer. I'm curious what version this is. Oh, that's some good grammar syntax. Fantastic. I'm going to put that out there in the stream chat, Understanding Lua's Garbage Collection. just so anyone else who wants it has access to that. Thank you, ACM. And thanks, Lordzak, for pulling that up. I'm going to save that for later and take a look at it because it's been a while since I've looked at Bacchus Noir. Oh, what is that? BNF? Now I'm going to... Bacchus Noir form. Okay. I was also to be like noir. That's a genre, but no, it's a Bacchus Noir form or BNF for grammar definitions, and it's been long enough that I'm not going to read that on the fly and be able to make sense of it. Oh, Lord Zach says, you think the only sad part is the code, quote unquote, is images? Oh, you know, I see what you mean in dark mode. Oh, that is sad. Figure 1, but this is very much written as a paper, and so I can see why they embedded code, embedded images. So, like, it is a figure. My goodness, but yeah, the syntax. I don't know if that is BNF or if it's something else that's similar to it. It just reminds me of BNF. And, yeah, that was a university subject. I haven't had a lot of reason in my professional life to be looking at that. Cool, awesome. Thanks, Lord Zach. I will look at that later. Okay, cool. So we're going to go ahead and be done looking at that. I mean, the long and short of it is object lifetimes are important to think about. And so if you have something at a file level that is local, you should assume that it is going to get destroyed very quickly. And you should wonder if that is appropriate for your object. Now, this won't happen if you create it as a local, but then you pass that a reference to it to something else that stores it. That it shouldn't. In fact, I say it shouldn't. Let's poke at that. So it's not being declared at file level that's the important thing. It's that the last remaining reference to it went out of scope. And so let's come on into main here. And we're going to go ahead and undo those comments. And we're going to go ahead and get rid of that garbage collect. That doesn't matter. Okay, so just to refresh our memory, what does this look like? And the answer is the collected one gets run a couple of times, non-deterministically, and the not collected one just keeps on running. And we're going to go ahead and bump that back up to like once a second, because we just want to make sure that things are not getting collected, or they are getting collected. Okay, so we can see once a second collected did get to fire once, because it's not after a second, it's a second before the second one goes off. And that's plenty of time for garbage collection to happen. But if we go ahead and say control not collected dot other control equals control collected, I'm predicting that that's going to tell the garbage collector, hey, we still have an ability to reference this object, therefore you can't garbage collect it. So, and that's exactly what we see, is the standard classical way you write a garbage collector is the garbage collector works hand in hand with the memory manager, and it starts at the in this case the global namespace, and it just walks through the tree of objects. So all the top level objects, cool. Which ones do you have references to? Which ones do you have references to? Which ones do you have references to? And so on. And anything that is either a global variable or is contained, a global variable has a reference to it, is going to be findable in this search, and then anything else is going to be collectible. And so by simply having a reference to this otherwise local variable in a global variable, and oh hey, I have a cat next to me, and that's what this is. This little squiggly IntelliSense is saying, hey, you've declared a global variable, but you haven't done it like capital. And in that sense, we can actually do a renaming here. So instead of control not collected, we can say global control. And let's go ahead and do that. And instead of control collected, we're going to call it a local control. And as long as there is a reference from within a global variable to your otherwise local variable, the lifetime is extended to the lifetime of the global variable. As it turns out, that's a while. Now, one thing we can do is to say kill our reference to the global variable as well, just to see what happens. So if we are in this function, if we say if start time equals, in fact we can put this in the global control.expire time equals 5. Let's say that. So if control.expire time and global control.start time equals, and we need a turbine.engine.get time. So at this point I'm just playing games for the fun of it. So if expire time, if that exists, then if time minus control.start time is greater than, and I'm just going to put some extra parentheses just for sanity's sake, is greater than control.expire time, then what we're going to do, we are going to assign global control to nil, which is to say the underlying object that this name global control was pointing to, we no longer have a way to access it. It's no longer reachable when you do a garbage collection. So let's see what that looks like and see if I've coded it correctly. Haha, fantastic. Boy, that line 41, what's going on here? Attempt to index local control a nil value. Great. If control equals nil, then return end. Okay. Now, we should probably actually know that this is happening. I am curious about this. So instead, we'll do turbine.shell.writeLine. Can output, but control was nil. And then we're going to go ahead and concatenate in the turbine.engine.get call stack, just because I'm curious. Lord Zach's pointing out that I probably didn't rename the last line. You're probably right. Global.other control equals yep, that'll do it. No wonder that lifetime isn't being extended. Okay. Fantastic. So what are we seeing here? We're getting a bunch of functions being called from main 74. Awesome. Which is here. Fantastic. So the update function is still getting called. This is a fascinating intersection between the LOTRO client and the garbage collection that we just normally don't see. So that update is still getting called. And if we wanted to be fancier about this, we would say global control set wants updates to false, and then ditch our reference to it. But we can see that we are in the function, the update function for global control, but that global control itself has been set to nil. Oh no, okay. Just don't name it. Just send sender, of course. So that's a me problem, I think. Okay. Now I set once updates to false. We're going to get rid of that. We're going to come back in and see what happens. That's fascinating. Okay, so we set the variable to nil. And so it just went to continue on its own recognizance, calling update, outputting stuff once a second. And the only problem with there was I got lazy and I hard-coded in the name of the thing, the reference to that memory space, instead of just saying, hey, we're getting it in our function as the sender, so we can pass that and not be dependent on the name of this thing here. Cool. Okay, so, but after a second, the garbage collector hunted down that rogue memory and deconstructed it. The thing that global control was pointing to until we said global control equals, points at nothing. And then there was just an object of memory, and then the garbage collector came and took it. So, neat. That's exactly what I was expecting to have happen, which is to say you can extend the lifespan of an otherwise filed local variable by making sure a global variable has a reference to it. But when that global variable, when nothing has a reference to it anymore, which you can do explicitly by reassigning it to nil, then the garbage collector will come and prune those objects eventually. It's happening within about a second on my machine, but again, that's non-deterministic. You just know it will happen sometime between now and when LOTRO shuts down. Now, in the LOTRO shuts down example, it probably bypasses that in favor of just letting the operating system do it, one would hope. So it can happen at any time, and it may never happen, is the better way to talk about garbage collection. C# has this problem where, or anything in the .NET ecosystem really, C# has this problem where it uses garbage collection, and it has what it calls finalizers, but the non-deterministic nature of a garbage collector means that those might never run. So there's this whole infrastructure of an iDisposable interface that says, hey, within the context of a using declaration, when I get to the end of the scope, please make sure you come and run this thing that's very much like a C++ destructor that would otherwise be done non-deterministically, because I've got some resources that I really do need to clean up when I'm leaving scope. So Lua doesn't have that, but you can set things to nil, and you can call collect garbage explicitly to force it to do that. And that's about the best you can do, I think, as far as I can tell in Lua. All right. I've got a cat next to me. I wonder if I can highlight Casper here. Hey, little one. Yeah. What you think? Oh, you're just gonna groom? That's fine. I'll slide over to the side a little bit. Okay. What a great question, Tellurian. Thanks for prompting me to refresh my memory about Lua garbage collection. Okay. Couple things I missed in chat. Okay, Lord Zach, why are some plugins preceded with the tilde? Oh, in my list. Cool. So it is really common for some plugins to want a way to either automatically reload themselves or to give the user a way to reload them. Because the built-in plugin manager does not have an unload button. It has an unload all button. And this is a side effect of the apartment nature of plugins, that there's no easy way for LOTRO to unload a specific plugin, but it can tear down an entire apartment. And for some plugins, that's synonymous. There's one apartment to one plugin. Now you can see the list of apartments. If you do a /plugin space list, plugins space list. Yeah. No, don't play with my microphone cord, please. Jerk. You're going to leave the camera just to try to unplug my mic? That's fine. Okay. So, when you do a /plugin space list, you're going to see a list of your plugins. Any of them that have called out something other than the global apartment. Oh, he's back. Okay. Well, that's good. Any of them that have called out an apartment other than the global apartment, will include their apartment in the list in these parentheses. And that is a thing that can be unloaded. So I can't unload deed tracker, but I can unload the apartment called deed tracker that happens to only contain the plugin deed tracker. Cool. So plugins can trigger the unloading of an apartment, and they can trigger the loading of a plugin. So a classic way to handle this reloading problem is to have a separate plugin whose only purpose is, when it loads, is to load the other plugin. And then whenever your normal plugin loads, it checks to see if its personal reloader is loaded, and if so, it shuts it down. Cool. So that reloader doesn't really have a purpose besides servicing a reload button like this. So a thing I like to do is prefix its name with something like tilde, which gets sorted after alphanumeric characters in this sorting system. So for me, I think of a tilde in the terms of like a C++ destructor. So the concept of a reloader kind of works with that in my mental model. So a tilde as a prefix seemed like a good starting point. And so anything that was meant to be a reloader, just meant to be, as part of one of my plugins, that was meant to be not a plugin that someone clicks on and loads. In fact, some of them, like Titan Bar, you'll see, oh, don't use this plugin. This is just for internal purposes. Let me see if I can find that. I think it's Titan Bar that calls that out. We're going to go ahead and no, don't refresh. Add. Great. Let's see, because Titan Bar comes with a couple of them. Titan Bar comes with the reloader. This is used internally by Titan Bar and should not be loaded by user or plugin manager. And the unloader, this is used internally with a big X. Like, to me, maybe don't sort it with the rest of your plugins. Sort it after all of the other plugins. So that's sort of my mental goal for reloaders is name them something different so that they don't sort with everything else. They sort after everything else. So that's why some of those have a tilde prefix. They're just helpers. And there's no harm in doing, like, if you have the Titan Bar loaded and you go and reload the reloader, there's no harm to it. It's just going to unload Titan Bar, reload it. Titan Bar will unload the reloader. You can say the same thing here. If you activate the unloader, all you've got now is an unloader loaded. But as soon as Titan Bar loads, it unloads the reloader or the unloader if they are loaded. So there's no harm in it. Cool. Cool. Lord Zach was calling out variable rename. Awesome. Okay, Agarth, some of that article looks like it uses BNF syntax, but other parts use something called PLT Redux, a domain-specific language designed for specifying and debugging operational semantics. Fantastic. Gotta love the ACM. Okay. And Telerian was calling out for plugin data, folders starting with a tilde are related to session play characters. Absolutely. I may have gotten that idea from the session play characters. It's probably not a great idea to have overlapping semantics like that, or conflicting semantics, where a tilde in plugin data means one thing and a tilde in plugin names means something completely unrelated. So that would be an argument against using a tilde. Use some other character. Just make sure it sorts after all the other plugins. Great question. Okay. Knots in chat says, hello. Hello. Welcome to a discussion about memory garbage collectors. Okay, now I am very happy with what we've done here. I'm going to set aside the discussion on garbage collection until some later time. I'm going to clean up a little bit here. I'm going to get rid of Quendel and Habna plugins, clean up that directory a little bit, close that, get rid of this Lua reference, get rid of this other Lua reference, and that. Clean things up a little bit. Okay, so what are we at? I received an email from someone who was having problems with the deed tracker importer. So we're going to start there. So what is the deed tracker importer? Well, if you are someone who has completed a lot of deeds and you just start using the deed tracker, you might want to use an external tool like the LOTRO Companion to import your deed status. Well, what does that look like? So when you run the LOTRO Companion, you want to go ahead and hit the import. You want to go ahead and start. And assuming this finishes successfully, specifically the deed status, done, awesome, then you've done everything you need to do, and then the rest of it is in the plugin. So Q plugins, deed tracker, there's an import deed completion from LOTRO Companion. Awesome. If everything's working well, it'll look like this. And you'll get a list of the following companions can be imported. Awesome. Who are we on with? We're on with Affodil. Import it. Done. And the next time the deed tracker is loaded, it will go ahead and process the file that we just produced. So I'm going to go ahead and unload the deed tracker, reload the deed tracker, and bam. Hey, you've completed 126 deeds. Great, import them. Why not? This character is very much not my completionist character. Okay, so what's going on here? We got an email from someone saying, hang on a sec, what am I seeing? Fantastic. Okay. I'm trying to load and use your deed tracker, but when I try to run the import.hci file, either as an administrator or a user, I keep getting an error that it can't find the file. See the attached screenshot. If I click on continue, it just closes. Yeah, fair enough. Can you please let me know what I'm doing wrong? I extracted the zip file to location. Is this where I have gone wrong? Many thanks for your help. Okay. Nodal says, hi, thanks for your hard work on deed tracker. It satisfies my do everything compulsion. I know exactly what you mean. I don't think I could work on something like deed tracker if I didn't have a fundamental desire to better track my deeds. It's a lot of complications that you wouldn't necessarily assume looking at it. Okay. Lord Zach, no, not do it again on a new character. No, I gotta say, personally, having a character be my completionist character is enough for me. I don't need all of them. It's nice to track my completionist on each character, so I can be like, oh, does another character need this instance? Oh, you're running Moria? Cool. Which one of my characters needs that? But I'm very happy to just say, okay, cool. Did it. Done. Noodle says, that's why I have it loaded on all characters. Awesome. So what do we see here? Now this is all written in an HTA, which is VB script and HTML, which is to say it's definitely not where my strength is. So it's not written well. It's written well enough. And so there's not a lot of good error handling. Like all of the UI draws itself kind of whether or not there's stuff to draw there. That's why we have all these horizontal rules to separate all the sections that would be there if it hadn't crashed. But we can go ahead and see that the configuration file isn't present. And this is the configuration file that is for LOTRO Companion, and it's kind of a requirement for us because we need to use that to find the data files that LOTRO Companion has saved. And by default, that is in users username.lotrocompanion/data/stuff. But you can set an alternate location for that data. Now the real trick is, why are we not seeing the data configuration properties? And this is kind of my problem, my fault, because I did not expand on, oh, we didn't find the file. I just said, hey, we're looking for it, and then an error pops up. But I didn't really say, hey, double check that that's a good location. So let's go ahead and spit out an error message right after the looking for LOTRO Companion configuration. Let's put an error message there if we can't find the stuff. And let's see. So what we'd like is if the file system object open text file, we should maybe check to see if it's there. How do we do that? No clue, because again, I don't write VB script very often. So file system object VBA, check if file exists. Great. Hey, there's a file exists on the FSO. Fantastic. So, now the rest of this, I wonder if there's a return function, a return value that I can do. Let's try it. This is a day for experimentation. We need that. Here, I'm going to turn off word wrap. This is already ugly enough as it is. Okay, so we need if ofso.file exists, then do stuff. Actually, we need negation. Is there a not character, or if not, great. Oh, right. If not, don't worry about parentheses. If not that, then show an error message and exit. So, I don't know. Can we do a return from a function? Probably. Return and if. So that's the first thing. And we need to be able to trigger this message. That's the first thing. In fact, I should back that out. We need to be able to trigger this message. So when we load this, we can see it is looking for the configuration in this location. Great. So that is data configuration.properties. So we're just going to go ahead and say, nope. My standard is just rename it with the .bak extension. Don't change anything else. That way it's really easy to undo this. You just remove the .bak extension. Okay, so well, that was dat configuration. Why is there both a data and a dat? What is dat? I don't know. Cool. Okay, we're able to replicate the error. The line number is different because I've got those new lines in there. So let's go ahead and uncomment them. Okay, type mismatch. Return. Yeah, that's fair. Return 1. I don't know. Type mismatch return. Fair enough. I don't know what I'm doing in VB script. I only did it this way as opposed to anything better because Songbook was already doing this. Okay. The internet suggests I could do exit function. Yeah, sure. Why not? Hey. Okay. Right, this whole thing in VB script about setting the name of the function to a value in order to return something, that it just goes over my head. It's a very peculiar way to do it compared to everything else. Okay, so we know, however, that if we are able to find it, we add more stuff to this. Okay, so here's what we want to go ahead. So let's go ahead and say emphasis, or something. Probably change the color here. Could not find the LOTRO Companion file. Make sure check if it exists, please. Something like that. Let's take a look at this. Oh, that's interesting. I don't want emphasis. I want bold. Why is italics emphasis? That does not compute. Could not find. Okay, and then red. Style color equals red. Great. Let's definitely do that. Error. Listed on the previous line. Can you do a break in the middle of an H2? Hey, you can. Cool. I'm not even sure checking, like, I'm not even sure what the advice is, because it should definitely be in that location. Looking for LOTRO Companion for configuration in, and I don't even like the wording of that, configuration file. Looking for that. Okay, this at least gives a much better error message. Instead of popping up a dialog, we get something big in red that says, this is the problem. Now, it'd be even nicer if we didn't continue on with the next part of the functionality. I think it's fine, whatever. I'm not looking to redesign all of this, but I was looking to clarify what went wrong. So error, could not find the LOTRO Companion file listed on the previous line. Now, LOTRO Companion itself does let you change your data file, but my understanding was if you go in here and change the user directory, that doesn't change everything. But what do I know? Let's go ahead and oh, that's funny. Just launching this had it create a new one. We'll take the old one. It's probably, you know what's probably identical. I'm curious. Okay, other than a date timestamp, it's identical. Great. Okay, so first of all, just restoring that file is going to mean that the rest of this continues as expected. Boy, I'd like the default width of this window to be different. I keep thinking about that. Okay, I have found a bit of thing. Resize. Are we doing that? Okay. Let's put this in our script, and then, cool, okay. Let's go ahead and maybe make it a little bit wider. And taller. Great. What's a reasonable size for this? 1,000? 1,000 is a bit much. Really, the only thing that is that long is this walkthrough. I don't think it needs to be the focus here. So let's do 800. That was enough pixels for an old school monitor. And let's go ahead and maybe make the whole thing like a square. That's a reasonable size for my screen. 800 pixels is definitely less than the standard 1920 by 1080. So it might be enough. Let's go ahead and close this and relaunch it and see how that looks. Well, it looks better. I wonder if there's a positioning thing we could do. Nah, we'll just leave it. Okay, definitely an improvement though. So what is that? That's a sub for window on load. So once the window is loaded, we can go ahead and do a resize, setting something explicit, and we're done. Cool. Thank you, the script guys, I think. Scripting guy 1 at devblogs.microsoft.com. Super easy. Okay, so what happens when you change the location of your LOTRO Companion.data? I'm guessing everything except preferences is what moves. And so we're going to go ahead and try that out. So we're going to come on in here, and we're going to say our user directory is going to be somewhere else. It's going to be in downloads, I think. There we go. And we're going to make a new directory. Wow, this is so Java. We're going to make a new one called LC. Okay. So restart the application so it takes effect. Okay. So preferences are still here. Does it move things? I was kind of expecting it would move things. Well, the only way to find out is by doing. Okay, it doesn't. It just, you're pointing it at a different directory, and it's on you to move stuff around. Okay, cool. And we can see accounts, characters, and kinships have been pre-created. Logs possibly will never be, and preferences look like they're not also. So your preferences should be there. So, we're going to go ahead and change the location back. I half expected it to move everything around. But I'd never tried that before. So cool. Fun little experiment there. Okay, so I'm going to guess, and this is a guess just based off of what we've seen so far, is that it's not necessarily obvious that the deed tracker and the LOTRO Companion are completely separate things. And so having the deed tracker plugin and seeing this import button, you might think, oh, okay, I don't need anything else. So I'm going to guess they didn't walk through the steps here at the import deed completion. Wow, is that not what I was expecting it to do? That is an old version of Internet Explorer. Okay, I'm guessing they did not follow this link to go to the instructions for downloading and configuring LOTRO Companion. That's my current guess. What do you think, Casper? Is that your guess? And so I'm going to circle back around to them and say, hey, can you show me your LOTRO Companion configuration? Because there should be a file there, and that's very confusing. So I'm guessing that's what happened. They didn't install and run LOTRO Companion, therefore the file's not there. Therefore, we don't know where to look for the rest of the data files. Therefore, nothing works. But I think it's good to have a better error message for the cases where that happens. The other thing I was thinking is it might be kind of neat. Why do I close things instinctively when I'm still working with them? It might be neat to have some sort of a version that is visible when you are in this window, because this is not the first time when someone has sent me a screenshot of this window, and I was thinking, I'm kind of curious, what version are they working with? And it doesn't have to be the same version as dtracker itself. In fact, incrementing the version here when nothing changes feels like unnecessary work. But if you do change something in here, I think it'd be neat from a screenshot to have a good chance of replicating what's going on. So I was thinking just coming in here and saying import deed completion version 1.2, arbitrary numbers. And that way, from now on, whenever someone takes a screenshot of this, you know what? 1 seems like a very low number. Let's make it 2.1. Version 2.1. So now anytime someone takes a screenshot of this, they are giving me that information I need, even if they don't mean to. Why are you facing that way? Silly. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So we have a version number. Now I just have to remember to update that version number anytime I make a change here. But if I don't, I'm in no worse of a space than I am right now. And if assuming I do remember it, awesome. So we can actually come in here and say, note, remember to update the version in the body h2 tag import the completion from LOTRO Companion. Yeah, we'll have a e.g. that. Okay, so I have a HTML comment at the top of this file that is hopefully the first thing I see. So I come into this file, I load it up, and the first thing I see is note, remember to update the version number whenever you make changes to this file. Great. Also, this file has a mixture of tabs and spaces that really sounds like a problem for future me. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so this thing is needlessly complicated, right? Like, it needs to find the LOTRO Companion configuration files so that it can then dig through those to find out what accounts we can import from, and then be able to match those to characters that have equivalent plugin data folders over on the LOTRO side of things, and so on. And so, yeah, there's a bunch of characters that are in LOTRO Companion that don't have corresponding folders over here because I've cleared them out before this stream, and I'll put them back when I'm done. But there's all these use cases of, well, what if you find folders here and not there, or vice versa? So, I think that's good. We're going to go ahead and call that good. Let's come into our source control and see what's up. All right, reidentification stuff I was playing around with, still not ready for that. So we're going to go ahead and stash that unfinished location stuff. Hey, welcome back. Yeah. Okay. Gotta make sure that you're visible, just in case. Okay. You know, I said I was going to stash that, but I should make sure I stash everything that I was doing. Changes. We're going to go ahead and take that. Not that, not that. Nope, nope. Okay, so just these. So we're going to go ahead and stash 2 files. Unfinished vocation changes. Great. We're going to go ahead and take these, added version, visible version number to import script. And that is this, and it is this. Great. And then added file exist check to LOTRO Companion data file. And that is this. Changed wording for message. That's this line. And size the window a bit better. It was too wide by default for my taste, but yeah. Okay, so that's all that. Now the big thing that we need to do is to figure out what really has changed since the last release. And that's something that might be doable a lot more easily if this was a single repository for dtracker instead of a combined repository for dtracker and festival buddy and minstrel buff and other things. So just going back through the commit messages is going to just have a bunch of stuff, right? But we have the 3.12 artifacts, but we can also just do a file level comparison between the last release. So let's start with that. Hello, other cat. Yeah, hey. You know, you keep running away from me and then coming back for pets. So I'm getting mixed messages. Okay, so let's pull open our release folder. So Plugin Along releases, great. And we have the dtracker 312. So let's get a sense of what is different here. And the short answer will be lots of things. Oh yeah, captured a cat. Oh yeah, you don't like that at all, do you? Yeah. This is Kato, and she likes many things in this world, but not being picked up. Nope. And yet, she stays. She just doesn't want to be picked up. As soon as her feet are on the ground again, she's fine. Your tail's kind of in my way, though. You can leave. No? Okay. Can you at least move your body? Cool. Thank you. Yes, definitely hide behind my monitor. That's no problems. Okay, so main thing is we do want to go ahead and revert this. We're no longer going to be in beta. What do you... No. So, we're going to go ahead and pick those changes up. But then within dtracker, that's the only thing we care about here. What's going on? Okay, so we've got our server level cap increases. that table's not for you. All right. I probably brought it on myself, though. Okay. Actually, while I'm doing this, I don't want to forget. What's going on here? Why do you think there's changes? I'm going to come into the debug line. Okay, chat logger, cool. There were just some stuff I don't care about. We're going to go ahead and stash this. Yeah, stash, one file, dtracker debug. Cool. Okay, so we've got our changes from 3.13 beta to 3.13. That means anyone who was on the plugin server who picked the beta, and who used the plugin compendium, they're going to go ahead and see a version change, so they'll be able to update automatically. Neat. Okay, so what else is going on here? We need to have our README file, which I've been so lax on. So version 3.1.3 changes. Normally I'm really good about updating this as changes happen, but this release, not so much. Deeds. General. Updated default server. Standard server level to 150. And legendary server level to 85. Which is funny because by the time this is released, 95 is going to be like the thing. Maybe I should just preemptively say 95. Sure. Let's go ahead and do that. Correct as of 12-10. I'm going to say 10. We don't know when the release is actually going to be. It's listed as the 6th as a, as a vague thing. But since the 6th is a Wednesday, and they tend to do that kind of thing on a Wednesday, which is their standard patch and server maintenance day. All right, I will bow to the consensus in the room and say as of the 6th. Okay, cool. That is good. Updated legendary, default legendary server level to 95. Okay, what else have we done? And we can see in globals, nothing else. Great, that's one file down. Okay, this import script, we've actually done a couple of things. So let's make a new section. Import. Added extra error checking when the LOTRO Companion files can't be found. Configuration file can't be found. Okay. What else? Default window size is no longer comically wide. And added visible version number. That's really more for a me thing, but why not? It's a change. We can list it. Okay. It's likely to get less easy from here on in. But let's take a look. Deeds. Added update 37. Corsairs of Umbar. Alright. Cat's going off to do other things. Corsairs of Umbar. Deeds. So, what does this do? Added Haradwaith. Is that the right spelling? Haradwaith. Added new Haradwaith. What do we call these? Page? page and rearranged existing pages to match new layout. Okay. Added shield aisles, Cape of Umbar, and Umbar Baharbel. Looks like there's an accent over that, so I guess I'll go to the actual deep files. There we go. Added instances, Corsairs of Umbar. Okay, cool. What else have we done? That was everything in the main win. Cool. Plugin functions. Removed a redundant call there. That won't matter. Okay, so prior save formats and data files. Prior save formats. My goodness. General. Improved file format upgrade logic. I mean, that's kind of it. Internally, I split out the version 2 to version 3 and the version 3 to version 3.1 file format updates into different files. So in the core file, there's just a update character from version 2 to version 3 call where all the rest of this happens, and then update character from 3 to 3.1 for all the rest. Logic no longer assumes all character files match the preference. Logic better handles the case where a previous update did not fully complete. Yeah, that basically was the problem. Someone had a bunch of character files, and a few of them had updated, but not all of them. So the core file still thought it was on version 2, but when it hit a file that was version 3 or even version 3.1, it just bailed, and the whole process failed. Not sure what caused it to fail in the first place. I forget if I fixed that in all of the rest of this, but definitely subsequent updates were failing because of that. So we're definitely going to be taking these new file formats, but that's all I think really need to say on that. And the rest of this is probably... Oh, interesting. Did I update these region start and stops? Okay, Eriador to Mordor. Eriador, I'd say it goes to Haradwith now. Okay. This is a thing where region-specific things like Warg Slayer, it's related to a specific region, and therefore your location can impact which version of Warg Slayer we select. However, post Gondor, it doesn't really matter so much because the deed names tend to be specific enough. But you never know; they could always revert. If we come into Haradwith and take a look, though, we see Beast Slayer of the Shield Isles. There's only going to be one of those in English. As long as they're consistent about it in other languages, it's not a problem, but we'll go ahead and update that. Okay. That is a under the covers change, though. We don't need to worry so much about that. We added Haradwith. Great. Corsairs of Umbar. Yep. Oh. apparently we also added Western Kings Gondor and Outer Gondor. Cool. Added Western Kings Gondor. And it would be nice to know how that is spelled in here. Western Kings. Nope, that's going to be in a different file. Western Kings Gondor, great. Added Western Kings Gondor tab, and that is going to be in Gondor, Western Kings Gondor, added Gondor, Outer Gondor tab. Okay. We had Hradwith, got him. Corsairs of Umbar, great. We have a new added faction. Related to reputation deeds. Cool. What else? Ledger Keepers. Yep, okay, so the new allegiances. Added allegiance. And it's not Ledger Keepers, but Order of the Eagle. Now, currently, in-game, we can only go up to level 10 with each of these, but they have... There's information out there, I forget where I heard it, probably Little Redhead. She keeps on top of this better than I do. But they're releasing, I think, levels 11 through 20 in a little while, and levels 21 through 30 early next year, I think, if I'm remembering that correctly. And so I'm going to put all 30 in here as possible deeds, and then, you know, they'll be available in the very near future. Cool. So added that allegiance. Added better categories. Category descriptions for delving deeds. Hey, you. I know you. You just ran in from outside. What's up? Okay. This is the warmest room in the house, and as winter sets in, the cats are spending a lot of time being in this space. Okay, and there's Eastern Kings Gondor, Western Kings Gondor, Outer Gondor. What's going on in Eastern Kings Gondor? Okay, well, apparently some deeds got added. No, they got rearranged. Let's go ahead and... Okay. Fixed order and hierarchy of Gondor, Eastern Kings Gondor tab. Okay. This is a methodical thing if you have source control of some type, even if it's just the old directory and the new directory. It would be nightmarish to try to reconstruct what did I do over the last couple of months without that. So source control is great. If you can do this, though, as you go, every time you add a feature, every time you update information, whatever, if you can just add a note to your README document then, or if you have a more refined system like you're working on GitHub or something else, you know, doing it as you go, having the updates as you go, and then just compiling them together at the end, it really simplifies things. Because the best time to write down what you just did is right after you did it, with some caveats. Okay, Hradwith, done. Okay, that's all the deed info structure. There might be something subtle in there that I missed, but I think that's good enough. Now, the rest of these files, anything that's ENFRDE, these are auto-generated, and so they're based off of the changes in the deed info.lua. So anything in here should be because of that, because I have a processor that consumes deed info and spits out everything else. Deed lookup tables, however, is another one that's got some hand-generated stuff. Okay. General added river hobbit. Oh, actually, that doesn't matter. That is a... Does it matter? It shouldn't matter because river hobbits can't get into the case where they would have needed that value, but it's nice to have it for completion's sakes. All right, Corsairs of Umbar. Stuff. Great. Oh, that's fine. Okay, more auto-generated and region infos. Okay. Whoops. So, added Erebor and Gundabad to region detection. Just for completion. Okay. Great. We'll go ahead and say that we're done with that. And in that case, I think we're actually caught up, which is pretty cool. Let's come on, circle back around though, and come into source control and see what did we change while we were doing that. Okay. Changed region stop from Mordor to Haradwith. Okay. Changed legendary server default level to 95. Come to you next week. Updated README with 3.1.3 changes. Okay. This is the updated version to 3.1.3 in plugin files. Awesome. And then, hey little one. You're back. Okay. And then we want to go ahead and make our website artifacts, the text that we're going to go ahead and put out for LOTROinterface.com and the LOTRO forums. There's all sorts of different ways to do this. I just have a bucket here called website where I do this. This is probably suboptimal, and one would think, because I'm using source control, that I could just have a file that I update, and then, yeah, I think it was probably a mistake to save a separate file each time, but it is the pattern that I've got going for me right now. So, what was my thinking on that? I think what I was thinking is that I wanted an easy way to search for words or phrases that didn't involve manually stepping time forward and backward in the source control to specific tabs. So because these were such small artifacts, I suspect that was my reasoning. I could be coming up with this after the fact. Anyway, now is not the time to change that path, I don't think. So we're going to go ahead and make a copy here, and that is our 3.1.3. And we're going to do the same thing here. Copy. And we're going to go ahead and have one for 3.1.3 as well. Great. So we have that. We're not doing anything different with images, so this is just what's going on. So LOTROinterface.com description. Okay, what do we have? Cool. Let's start by adding an entry here. This is going to be 11-28, version 3.1.3, added, update 38, Corsairs of Umbar deeds. I'm going to turn word wrap back on here. Little Redhead has prompted Moonbot to say that the LOTRO freebie for the week is a free +5 hope boost that lasts 90 minutes and lasts through defeat, which is super useful in some instances. Type all caps hope boost, one word, into the store to receive that. Pretty sure I've already done that. What does it do if you've already done it? Let's take a look. Hope boost. Coupon uses per account limit reached. Well, that's an awkward way to say that, but sure. Okay. Neat. Yes, are you spazzing out? You seem like you're spazzing out. Okay. Added those deeds, and really it's just a question of what else from the README file seems relevant. Most of that is, oh, oops. That's not, this isn't, yep, that is. Okay, that indentation was misleading. Import. We'll go ahead and take that. Improve file format upgrade logic. And that's really it. And we're going to go ahead and say release notes are here. I'm just using the previous entry because I don't have the current one. But once I've posted there, circle back around, fix it here. Okay, and in 3.1.3 is now available at blah. This adds U38 deeds and a few other minor things. And this is where the full release notes from the README file go. Now, we're going to go ahead and convert from the one to the other, to the form code. So, in a separate window here, we're going to go ahead and say, anytime we have a colon here, nope, a colon new line, nope. Oh, actually, yes, colon new line. We want to go ahead and say start the list, and we want to stop that at some point. Okay, so that one stops here, list. And we also need to stop the list for add the Corsairs at that point. And then each one of the items here we go ahead and say star. Great. That was probably the most complicated one. We need to go ahead and end the list over here. And over here. And we also need to have our stars here. Okay, that is quite plausibly everything we need. Let's go ahead and start with that. And see. Okay, cool. So everything's ready for the website. Now the last thing we need to do is prepare the actual release files. That should be pretty straightforward. We're going to start by duplicating version 3.13. Sorry, version 3.2 to become version 3.3. And then we're going to go ahead and bring over all the changes we want to make sure we have from the live folder. So everything should be pretty familiar because we just did this as part of the review. But now we're just doing the sort of committing it into the release directory. All right, so in dtracker, in data files, we're going to take all of these. All of that looked good. In prior save formats, we're going to take the updated and these two new files. That's very important. We need them both. It won't crash until you're doing the update, and then it will absolutely fail to find those files that it conditionally imports, and then it all goes wrong. Okay, globals. Yep, we want that. The import stuff. All of that was great. Main win, plugin functions, readme. Pretty sure all of that was awesome. Yep. Plugin functions. Yep, we're going to take that. And the readme. We're going to take all of that. Okay. Currently, the reloader is not shipped with this. I keep thinking about maybe doing it, but it hasn't happened. Okay. That's all of the files. So, at that point, we have our files staged. We can go ahead and make ourselves a new zip file to contain them. So, dtracker 3.13, and then in here, we need it to be cube plugins so that everything gets extracted correctly. So we have our release file. In that zip file, we have a folder called cube plugins. Perfect. And we have the documents that we're going to use, so we can get straight to the release. Now, it might be that I misformatted some of this forum code. We'll take a look and see how it looks before worrying about it. So, over on LOTRO interface, we are logged in, and we're going to go ahead and come on down to updating. So you hit the edit button if it is your plugin, and you're going to get to the edit screen. We're going to bump that to 3.1.3. We're going to replace with dtracker version 3.13.zip. And we're going to replace the text here with what we've already prepped. So we don't have to do any thinking about that. I'm not going to delete any archives. Maybe someday start cleaning those up, but today is not that day. And update. Fantastic. So, list my interfaces, and we can see that update is pending. And if we go to the page, oh, that's the edit page. Fascinating. If you go to the dtracker page, it will let you download previous versions. It's possible it's already ready to let me download this version. If I go to download, what do I get? 3.13. Fantastic. It's nice when it gets a very fast approval. Okay, and then we're going to come into the form. We got to sign in. Ik ben geen robot. We're going to come on into wherever we just were. Fantastic. Okay. So, do they have threading in the same way? You can edit that. Is there threading in the same manner as there was on the old server, where I should care which one of these I reply to? Uncertain. So just in case, I'm going to reply to the first one. And we're going to go ahead and pull in the other code. Cool. Maybe Torque is peeking in chat. Hello. Okay. So as update 38 deeds and fix a few minor things. So deeds and okay, that's interesting. What's going on here? Oh, of course. Well, I didn't say that that one was an item, so that needs to be fixed. That could be everything. Let's see how that looks. Sure, that all looks reasonable. So we're going to go ahead and post that reply. And we're going to go ahead and see how do we get a link to this thing. Cool. And we come back in here and we can update the description for 313. That's the correct form text. So we'll come back in here and edit this. And that gives us the correct link to the form. All right, update that sucker. And we can double check that by coming on in here, and release notes are here, and that should take us straight to 313, and it does. Bill Slowski says, hi, before, will the new version be ready to use today? Well, today has all the makings of your lucky day, because I have just pushed out the release of Deed Tracker. You can find it live on LOTROinterface.com. You can see it is updated, and you should be able to download 313 with the Update 38 Corsairs of Umbar deeds, and a few other things. So absolutely. Okay, that's neat. Oh, hey Kat. Oh, no one's liked it yet. No, that's okay. So, I said update 37. That sure seems wrong. Update 38, Corsairs of Umbar deeds. So, how do we edit this? Update 38, Corsairs of Umbar deeds. Unless I've got that wrong. LOTRO Wiki updates. 38, Corsairs of Umbar. Great. The 9th major expansion. You know, I was just mentioning Little Redhead's chat that it feels like the norm is for the major autumn update to come with a level increase. And I was thinking, but is that true? So I was actually looking to come to this page. So November 2008, bumped it up by to level 60. And then we can see December the next year to 65. And then skip 2 years to Rise of Isengard. Between Caesar Mirkwood and Rise of Isengard, there were 4 different releases, and they transitioned to free-to-play. So a lot going on there. But September, update to 75. And we can see October the next year, 85. November the next year, 95. Oh, July the next year, level 100. Fascinating. Bringing out a bunch of stuff. 2 years later in April, it's 105. Then August the next year, 115. October the next year, 120. November the next year, 130. War of Three Peaks came out, as did Wilderland, as did The Great Wedding, as did The Wildwood, as did Blood of Azog. But 2 years later, Fate of Gundabad came out with another level bump. That was 2021. Here we are 2 years later with another level bump. So it definitely feels like they've slowed down on the level bump in favor of other things happening in the every other year. Very interesting to look at. Cool. Okay. For anyone looking to review that later, it is LOTRO.com, or LOTRO Wiki, LOTRO-wiki.com/wiki/list of major releases. Fun. Okay. So, the update has been pushed. The text has been updated with the link to the forum. The forum text has been updated with the correct version. And I think that is really cool. So we're going to check our release artifacts into the repository. So that's the 313. 313. Updated that. Cool. And then just for easy finding of things, we're going to go ahead and tag this. New tag 313. Cool. Push those out so it's not just on my machine. And get our dtracker debug back, because that's super useful. Okay. Well, that was really cool. I'm glad we got a chance to both release the plugin, but also talk about some other not dtracker related stuff at the beginning. Thanks again to Tellurians for a really interesting and subtle question to dig into at the beginning. So I think we're rapidly approaching what I'm going to call the end of this stream. So if you have any last minute thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, toss them into chat there while I make sure I haven't forgotten anything that I really wanted to look at. Okay. To do. Oh, hey, I did that. So, one of these days, I need to follow LOTRO Companion's excellent example and get all this into GitHub as issues. All right, Real Tough says they just used Compendium to update it. So you've got about 2 minutes to report any problems in chat here. Otherwise, you have to do it on the forums or email. Baby Torque says, were you self-taught as a programmer or did you attend university? I started learning how to code in American high school. And technically a little bit before that, because several members of my family were involved with computers, either programming or... So I was growing up in the transition between MS-DOS style, no GUI, and the introduction of Windows. And so my parents and aunts and uncles were learning, very early computer systems, or they had experience with punch cards or that kind of thing. So I got to get some hands-on learning from them for very simple things. Like I was playing an old computer game, and they were like, hey, if you open up the save file in a hex editor, you could probably find where your strength and dexterity and constitution are stored and then change them. And hey, that's a great chance to segue into hexadecimal. So that, those are some of my formative years before even getting to American high school. But in American high school, we got to learn BASIC, and if you continued onward, you could start learning, we were just transitioning to C++. And then going off to university, doing software engineering as a coursework. Surprisingly little emphasis on programming languages, but a lot more work on the fundamentals. So I had, some basic programming courses, but a lot less than you might think. It definitely wasn't a sort of a trade school approach where we're going to immerse you in programming, but a lot more things like, hey, what is what's a compiler, and how would you go about it, and what is Bacchus Noriform, and let's talk automata, and all these other things. And definitely worthwhile, but if all you need to do is learn how to write a little bit of code, then the rest of that, while very valuable, doesn't necessarily directly impact writing a LOTRO plugin. So my coursework was university, but I wouldn't say you would need that to do a plugin for a video game. It just is a kind of an overkill as preparation, because it means I can jump into this, and even though I don't know what I'm doing with Lua necessarily, I feel comfortable playing around and stealing ideas from other plugin creators and figuring out, oh, how does this work, and how can I incorporate it over here? Maybe Torque says, likewise, I still remember MS-DOS prompt. Well, I use command prompts or PowerShell more often than the average person, right? Like, it's still there. It's not MS-DOS, but command prompts are still very useful. And it's not part of my daily process. Well, PowerShell is PowerShell is part of my daily work process. But yeah, I use command line utilities a fair amount still. Even though I no longer have Cygwin installed on my computer for easy access to Linux tools, which I did have when my day job involved a lot of Linux. Less so now. Maybe Torque says it's awesome. Thanks for sharing. I'm interested in the field. That's why I ask. Yeah. There's a difference between just coding and software engineering. Some people will have very strong opinions on this, but I definitely think the slightly more rounded education of here's how to code, but also here's how to think about coding is very useful if you want to do it as a career. It's not the only path forward, and I'm probably biased because it's the way I did it, but if you're going off to university and think about software engineering, just don't expect that you're going to spend a lot of time coding. You might use coding in many of your classes, like I'm trying to remember the name of it. Data structures and algorithms was probably the name of the class, or the topic of the class, if not the actual name. And thinking about data structures and what is a red-black tree and how do operations on hash structures work, part of that class was doing exercises in whatever language you wanted in order to make the thing happen, implement the algorithm so that you better understood it. But the point wasn't to make the algorithm. The point was to learn the algorithm using whatever programming language you happen to want to do. And so, yeah, the data structures and algorithms, like, you could see how that class could have been taught 30 years prior, no one having access to a computer outside of, a punch card deck, but you do it all by hand. You just write on pieces of paper and still come out having learned essentially the same stuff. The coding wasn't really an afterthought, but coding was just a way to integrate the knowledge and learn what's going on. Like, how does this algorithm work? But you can also just have like physical models where you're like moving nodes around on a tree to understand the algorithm. The point is understanding it, and whatever language you happen to do it in when you're coding it up to kind of convince yourself you know how the algorithm works. Whatever. So we had, it's like, do it in Java, do it in C, do it in C++, do it in whatever. That part didn't matter. The coding was less emphasized than the understanding of the data structures and the algorithms. But I went to one specific university in one specific location in the United States. I'm sure there's a lot of different experiences for what it means to get a software engineering degree. Cool. And on that note, thanks for the trip down memory lane there, maybe Torque. On that note, I think we're going to go ahead and bring this stream to an end. I'll be back next Tuesday doing something. Probably switching on back to Festival Buddy because the Yule Festival just keeps on approaching, and we want to get some of those changes out, especially some of the translations for German and French that were submitted. So we want to get a release out ASAP for Festival Buddy. Possibly multiple releases, because get one just before Yule and one during Yule maybe. So we'll be back next Tuesday. And what else was on my note here? I think the next streamer on the LOTRO stream schedule is Meilung, with Adventuring Back to Rohan with Meilung at 9 p.m. Eastern server time. And with that is everything we are going to cover today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me on this exploration of LOTRO plugins. I do hope to see you here next week. And until then, keep plugging along. All right, bye-bye now.